that these new type of production companies are actually asking for performing rights? Is anybody talking about a direct source license when they're negotiating composing deals that you've seen?
I have not yet seen that. Steve?
No, I've not seen that too often either. I mean, there are a few broadcast entities who,
Right.
when licensing music, will ask for performing rights, ESPN being one of them. I've not seen a broad grant of these rights so far. Most of the online services that we've talked about here do have licenses with the performing rights organizations and are paying royalties. The amount of royalties is small because the marketplace is small. Advertising dollars fund television. Advertising dollars fund the online sites. The disparity there is huge, and so the amount of money coming out of those sites is still very, very small. But my belief is, and I'd be curious what everybody else thinks, is that we are going to be moving to a streaming model, less downloads, less DVDs, and streaming is going to become the way people look at television, Netflix being the prime example. I think that's going to happen more and more and more in the non-broadcast television world. And so it's important that the societies and the parties involved understand that and craft their licenses with the services accordingly and make sure to try to monetize those. The societies are doing the best they can to keep up with technology, as we all are. But I mean, all the broadcast networks have websites where they stream their programs. You can see programs on YouTube. You can see them on Hulu. You can see music videos on Vivo. All of these sites have performing rights licenses. It's just that they're not generating enough dollars from those sites yet to make that money appreciable, and certainly not enough to equal what's on broadcast television.
Sure, yeah, but that things are changing
Absolutely.
faster, I think, than anybody imagined. I agree with you 100% about streaming, taking over. We certainly see that in the music, the pop music space, where companies like Pandora and Spotify that are providing a service above and beyond the individual tracks. They're providing you with kind of your own customized radio station, if you will, and you get to listen to music that you love and other music that you probably will love because it's like that. And
in some ways, this is a good thing for composers of TV and film, because for DVDs and downloads, they don't make anything. For streaming, they will make something.
Right. Yep, that's good. Very good point. So, well, I'm delighted to hear you say that you're not seeing requests for performing rights, because there was some concern when ASCAP in the now it's going to escape me. I believe it's in the DMX case, where there was a discussion about what was called an adjustable rate blanket, where licensees of ASCAP would be able to much more easily deduct from their ASCAP fees anything they could directly license. There was a concern this was going to put a lot of pressure, especially on new properties, to ask composers for a buyout of their performing rights on the front end, with the assumption that going forward that would make their property more valuable, down the road. And there's been concern that companies like Netflix and Hulu and Amazon and the G word, we're going to begin to buy out those performing rights going forward. So I'm delighted to hear that you haven't seen that yet, and certainly we hope that.
Well, I haven't seen it in the composer deals, but I think, Doug, as you well know, being in the production music library business, that model is changing as well. There are a lot of companies who are offering production music library for no upfront fee, hoping that they can live on the performance royalties. And now we're seeing companies that are offering music only for an upfront fee, with no back end. So the model is changing, especially in the production music world.
That model just doesn't make, I try to be an open-minded person and try to, that model just doesn't make any sense to me. And I wonder if it's because a certain amount of naivete about what the back end really can look like. Talk about that for a second, either one of you. Let's say I've got the theme music to a hit show, that's going to be, that's on a major network. It's going around the world. I've got 3 or 4 seasons. I got the number 2 or number 3 show. What am I looking at in terms of the value of those performing rights over time coming back from around the world? Round numbers.
Considering if it's a hit show and lasts for a while, it could be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, just on writer share. I mean, these shows go on forever. I mean, one of the examples I always use in terms of talking about direct licensing is imagine you're a composer in the 1950s and a production company comes to you and says, we're doing this new show. It's about a Cuban that no one can understand his English and a wacky redheaded wife. And we would like to have you compose the theme for this show, and we will buy out your performance royalties. Well, I Love Lucy has been on the air for 60 years, and it plays in every city in the country. Imagine if Elliot Daniel had sold his performing rights at the inception of that engagement.
Do you agree that there may be, especially among young composers, may not appreciate what they're giving up when somebody says we want to buy out your performing rights?
Well, I think it's two things. I think one is that you have young composers who are so eager to get any kind of work and any kind of credit that they will sell their soul, or in this case, just give up their royalties in order to get the gig. And the second thing is that I don't think they understand what it's worth.
Yeah, I mean, that was my point. Evan, you want to?
I would agree with that, but I've been pleased that a lot of the clients that I've come across, the one thing that they are very careful about are those performance royalties. So I'll often, as the attorney, complain that I think the composing fee is too low, or the commitment to the number of tracks, if it's a single song deal, is too low. And the client will always come to me, well, but I still get my performance income. And then some of them even have a long-term play that they want to eventually get a publishing deal, which will actually complicate things for them as a composer. But so I think there's a lot of informed people out there as well.
Okay, so we're talking about a direct grant of performance rights. I think we've really kind of talked about this. My last question is, how would a composer know what the value might be? If somebody comes to a composer and says, look, we'd like to have the rights to this theme. It's going to run on NBC Tuesday nights from 8 to 9, and half of the show is going to be music. How do you know what that's worth?
Luckily, those type of deals haven't come about for performing rights yet. What I see more often is composers who create packages, let's say for local news, where the local station will use their music and want to buy out the performing rights. And typically those are short-term licenses, 2 or 3 years, and they will build in a performing rights component. And in some ways, the composer can look at their past history, what they're making from other stations to determine it. And sometimes, honest to God, it's just a guess.